The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Lee Edelstein, I'm the director of Death with Dignity-Albany. Over here is Jeff Baltus, our deputy director. We are very happy to have you here. Please be sure that you are, if you'd like to continue to receive information from us, please be sure that you're on our email list so that we can send you updates and information. Death with Dignity-Albany has a dual mission. We provide a forum for people to discuss issues and learn about issues related to aging and end-of-life matters. And we also provide advocacy for medical aid and dying legislation in New York State. So you're going to hear about all of that in today's program. And first, about the advocacy that we are involved in. So let me introduce Amanda Kavanaugh. Where are you? Oh. Amanda is our Death with Dignity-Albany's advocacy director, and she is also the outreach manager for our partner organization, Compassionate Choices. So Amanda is going to give us the latest news on legislative matters.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see so many new faces here. Just briefly, I'll say, as Bonnie mentioned, I work on the Medical Aid in Dying Act here in New York. And there's legislation pending in 26 states across the country. For those of you who aren't familiar with medical aid in dying, it's sometimes referred to as death with dignity or end-of-life choices or all sorts of a variety of names. But what the legislation would allow is if a person has a terminal illness, 6 months or less left to live, they can ask their physician for a prescription that they would take to pass away peacefully. There's a number of safeguards, and if folks have questions, I would be happy to answer them after today's presentation. But I just want to briefly update you on what's the latest news happening in the medical aid in dying world. You may have seen that Hawaii has recently passed the bill through their Assembly and their Senate. It's now sitting on the governor's desk, and he has 30 days to sign it, and we're pretty confident that that will happen. So Hawaii will become the next jurisdiction to authorize medical aid in dying. The next state that is really close is New Jersey. The bill recently passed the Assembly Judiciary Committee there. It will be going for a full vote in the Assembly in May, and then in the Senate in the fall, and we're hopeful that by the end of the year, New Jersey will be the next state following Hawaii. Here in New York, things are continuing to move along. We are hosting our spring lobby day that we do every year on April 23rd. In advance of that, on April 9th, we will be hosting a training for anyone that's interested. After our lobby day, we're expecting that the bill will move through the Assembly Health Committee, but we can't do that without people showing up on lobby day, talking to their lawmakers, and really making this an important issue for them. I think I'm feeling a little disheartened by the budget this year. A lot of the important and big things were extracted from the New York State budget, and I really learned that showing up every single day is sort of what makes it happen. And so we're not there yet in New York with medical aid and dying where we need to show up every day, but we do need to show up on important events like Lobby Day on April 23rd. The last thing I just want to briefly mention, because some folks may know, we were at the Medical Society conference 2 weeks ago, last week. The Medical Society has done a survey of their members. They're currently reviewing the survey results, and then they'll make a decision on whether they're going to stay opposed, go neutral, or do something else. So if you notice on the back, I left the Ask Your Doctor pamphlets, but it's really more important than ever to talk to your physicians about this issue because the Medical Society from the physicians that people are supportive of this. That's it.
So much, Amanda. Boy, can she project her voice or what? Yeah, you can hear. So I will make an effort to speak more into the mic. So let me introduce today's first speaker. Our first speaker, Susan Harris, who has a doctorate in education, has enjoyed a diversified career that spans the fields of education, workforce development, and public health. First, a high school English teacher, and finally, an undergraduate public health instructor. Teaching has bookended Susan's career, which has included a wide variety of interesting roles. A list too long for me to tell you right now, but trust me, she has done a number of very broadly different and interesting things over her career. Throughout, her guiding light has been to educate others to recognize that they have the capacity and the right to act independently and to make their own free choices with dignity and respect. Susan.
Before we begin today, I would like to give a shout out to Ashton Applewhite. I don't know if any of you have heard that name. Okay. She's written a book called, I'm sorry.
This chair rocks.
Yes, this chair, no, my phone is ringing and I got to turn this thing off. Remind me later. Okay, sorry. This Chair Rocks, a manifesto against aging. Yes, she has given me several ideas and even examples I'm going to use today. And the second thing I wanted to do was to actually highly recommend a book by my friend, my colleague, and my co-presenter today, Ellen Cole, 70 Candles, Women Thriving into Their 8th Decade. Ellen, you wrote the book I wish I had written. Here she's got it. I knew she wouldn't miss. Yeah. So without further ado, I'd like to say, if you don't mind, I'd like if we could get up close and personal. So that being the case, here I am. Now I got to get back to the mic, but no, I haven't just come from cross-country skiing, but I do cross-country ski. And in fact, this year I skied more than ever, and I turned 70 in January. What I do want to say is that I've come here today for wearing this outfit because of a couple of things. I'm very proud of what it has to say about me. Number one, I'm active, and not just physically active, but active in several different ways. Intellectually active, socially active, culturally active. And the other thing it says about me is that I make free and bold choices. But you might say, so, what about the miniskirt here? Is she dressing for her age? Well, don't go there. That's ageism. So, the other good thing about this outfit is that it's got pockets for notes. So, this outfit is definitely a visual metaphor for my talk today. My whole point in a nutshell is say no to ageism. Ageism being defined as prejudice and discrimination against people of a certain age. And I just want to give an example of that. I was walking in New York City with my 33-year-old daughter, who's also an athlete, and we were walking at a pretty fast clip to make a show in Manhattan. And I might we were weaving in and out of the crowd, and I might have accidentally bumped somebody. Not uncommon in Manhattan. And a young man behind me said, Move over, old lady. Yeah. Well, I was really taken aback, and of course, I didn't have any retort. I just couldn't think of anything at the time, and even now, thinking about it, I can't even think of what I might have said. He was gone anyway, in an instant. But I wanted to talk about ageism, and actually, I want to be interactive today, and I want to ask you if some of you can come up with examples of ageism insults to you or to somebody, a loved one. Can you think of something that constitutes ageism? Yeah.
So I have a sister who is, 78.
Can't hear.
She's, so my sister had polio as a child. She has no rotator cuff left. And the doctor said at her age, they wouldn't consider surgery to give her either shoulder replacement or, and she's basically losing the function of her arm.
Well,
Now, maybe there's a medical reason, but
but for her age, because of her age.
because of her age.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other examples? Yes.
I don't know if this is ageism, but I don't like it. People offer me a seat on the subway.
That's bad.
I like that.
My sister told me that she visited Portland, Oregon, and they had a very nice way of treating seniors on some trolley they went on. They actually called them honored citizens. Carol, I'm glad you came today. Would you care to talk about what happened at Mount Van Hovenberg when you went to pay your trail fee?
This is, I think, the opposite of ageism. If you're over 70, you ski for a very reduced rate in Hovenberg. And I think anybody who can ski at that age is part of I think we're very privileged. So, I don't think that's, I don't know if
Okay, so it goes both ways.
Right.
Right. Yes.
This is a different kind of ageism. People come up to me and say, I can't believe the age you are. And that is ageism.
Can't believe the age you are. In other words, compliment?
Pardon?
A compliment? A big compliment.
But it's not a compliment. It is a compliment.
They're giving it as a compliment.
It's defining that at a certain age you can't be the age, however you are.
Yeah, however good you look, you can't be that.
That's the same when people say you look good for your age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay. So those are very good examples of ageism. I say no to ageism and yes to agency. So agency I define as thinking for oneself, acting independently, and making free choices. And as an example of agency, as Bonnie was saying, I believed throughout my entire career, whatever it was, that I was there to promote agency. Whether I was a teacher or a school administrator, it was always about giving young people the feeling that they can make a difference, that they have a voice, and they should use it. When I was director for a project that helped mentally ill people with mental illness, get back into the workforce, it was all about letting them keep more of their SSI and SSDI as they entered the workforce, because often careers and jobs help people define themselves and give them a voice. When I was a teacher, an instructor in public health most recently, it was all about teaching students that public health was not an academic subject, but something they should go out into the world with and show other people that public health matters. This is what public health is, and this is what the community should know and do. Be active. So, again, in a nutshell, Say no to ageism, yes to agency. Now it's your turn to get up close and personal. I'm going to ask you, how many still celebrate birthdays? Oh, yay. Good. Anybody here who has stopped celebrating?
For years. Why would you do that? Why?
Yeah, can I ask when and why?
Just gets me closer to my journey. Why should I say? That's not a positive, but I don't get worried about it. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. All right. So, has anybody looked into the mirror and and said to themselves, "Oh my God, what's happened?" Okay. Yeah, bemoaning the ravages of time on hair, on skin, on infrastructure. Yeah. So I have to say, don't tell anyone, I do that. Yes, so this is something that I know I shouldn't do. I shouldn't feel a victim of time. I should really feel like a crusader. Because frankly, back in the 1970s, before Nike and Adidas made their fortune selling athletic footwear and apparel, I was running in New York City in Riverside Park. I just like Forrest Gump, I just started one day and I kept running for 43 years. And I'm very proud to say that, 43 years, but it's taken its toll in the form of weathered skin. That means wrinkles. Once again, I'm better off when I look at the balance sheet because frankly, I have good vitals, pretty good bones, and some people have said that I have a svelte figure. I'll take that. So with all of this, with what's happened to me, I should really be very thankful about and more generous with myself and with others. But somehow, I still look in that mirror with sometimes a puckered expression, dubious, and I really should be saying to myself, that's what's happened. All those good things and those good experiences. So remember that when you look in the mirror about the positive side of things. Yeah.
I'm going to stand up because I think if people can hear better, somebody's standing up. I'm having trouble hearing people sometimes when you're sitting down. But what I think the images that we see in the media are completely the opposite of the way we look, okay? I recently canceled a subscription to a magazine that I had been getting for years and years and years because they didn't have any younger models. And I wrote to them ahead of time and said, where are your older models? Older. They're all 20, you know. And I found it not helpful. It's the yoga journal, and I'm a yoga practitioner, and I'm a yoga teacher. And it's like, I don't understand, people our age are doing yoga. They're doing it all over the place. It's something very common. So I find it insulting and demeaning that these magazines, New York Times, whatever, show these images of just younger people. Why are we not out there when there's so many of us and we're so active?
I think that's an excellent point. And can we hold that and remember it?
Okay.
Thank you for raising that. Oh, I'm sorry. She was talking about the fact that, unfortunately, there are not a lot of older models out there. You know, people doing yoga, there are plenty of older people doing yoga, but they're not shown in ads and in the way we see them being portrayed. Yeah, in fact, I was going to just say that sometimes it's hard to have self-acceptance because of the advertisers out there. And yeah, so the advertisers also play to our insecurities, our dissatisfaction. our body dysmorphia. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that term, but meaning disliking our faces and our bodies. So there are all these anti-aging products and services and treatments out there. Oh, you can have cosmetic surgery, you can have a tummy tuck, you can have a this, you can have a that. They're all things made to make us feel younger and exude that image of youth. The anti-aging products are multiple, and you can think of all the creams and balms and everything. A little story. One time, not recently, in my own family room, I was on my stationary bike spinning to the Sunday morning news programs, the repetitive news programs, and believe it or not, I was startled into alertness by a commercial. And it was a commercial for an antidote to crepey skin. Not creepy skin, crepey skin. I know that they may be the same thing, but, but anyway, crepey skin is when the facial wrinkles migrate to the arms and the legs. And so this particular commercial was offering us the fountain of youth in a jar for only $39.99. But wait a minute. If you go online or you call now, you can get 2 jars for $39.99. But wait one more minute. If you order right now, you can get free shipping. Wow. So I was really attuned to this, waiting to see if they were going to sweeten the pot a little more. Nope, that was it. So I came back to reality, and I realized how it is that our insecurities are played into. Our dissatisfaction is what companies make their profits off of. In this capitalistic society, it's that dissatisfaction that's monetized. So there is pushback in some quarters, and some of you may have seen a documentary at the Spectrum about a year ago about Iris Apfel. Anybody see that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I saw it.
Okay.
Battered light.
Yes.
She just died.
Yeah. So she was the fashion icon, those of you who don't know, with the big round black spectacles, the red lipstick, the bright clothing, nice textured clothing. She was a fashion icon known for her clothing lines, her accessories, her furnishings, and at 90 years old, she was a visiting professor at University of Texas. In 2005, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Costume Institute, premiered an exhibit on her called Rare Bird, the Irreverent Iris Apfel.
Rara avis, I see.
What was that?
Rara avis.
Right, that in French, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah, Rare Bird. So, if we have even a little bit of Iris Apfel in us, I think we'll realize that aging is not a deficit, but an opportunity. Again, nevertheless, a lot of us fear losing our independence. Things like driving, or not being able to drive to appointments, to the grocery store, to meet a friend for lunch, or to play mahjong. It means maybe not being able to take care of our homes or our belongings. And that scares a lot of us. But, independence isn't all that it's cracked up to be. If you reflect, many of us, when we raised kids, needed help. We needed support. We relied on babysitters. We relied on carpools, house cleaning services. And it's not so bad to need people. Needing that support makes us human. And it's called interdependence. Interdependence is when people share their strengths, their wisdom with other people. and those people share theirs in return. So older people who have wisdom and experience and maybe some time on their hands could generally help people who are juggling family and career, who may be stronger, maybe quicker, more agile, maybe more technologically savvy because they grew up with computers and smartphones instead of transistor radios and payphones. So, so this interdependence may be a good argument for intergenerational housing, as opposed to senior housing for people 55 and above. I'm not advocating one or the other. I'm just curious to know other people's perspectives. I know Ellen in her book said that where we live as we age is the second most important consideration of people in their 70s and above, right after retirement. So we are fortunate today to have people from Loudonville Assisted Living, and you have wisdom and experience that maybe you can share with us. I'm curious today to gain perspectives on what is a welcoming and wholesome living arrangement, situation, living community for people as we get older. So I'm going to ask right now for some interaction, some ideas from you folks.
I'd actually like to share something that I recently learned about. What you're describing sounds an awful lot like what you're describing sounds an awful lot like something that I just recently learned about that I'm still kind of green on knowing what it's all about, called the village movement. Yeah. It's exactly what you're describing, this intermingling of people, although I never considered it to go both ways, where, you know, there are services that the older generation can offer to the younger working generation, such as child care, wisdom that could be shared. But it's this idea that people live together in communities, and my understanding of it is they kind of do some favors for their neighbors to help them still be able to live in their homes as long as possible. Maybe it's going and shopping for groceries for Mrs. Smith once a week. Maybe it's a plumber going over and helping somebody out with a leak in their bathroom or something like that, but thereby allowing people to not be prematurely placed into a nursing home setting. So I really think it's a very progressive idea and maybe the way that we need to be moving forward to in the future.
This is more of an observation or a comment. I think that around the world, if you look at some of the cultures where families live together, where the elderly are not allowed to leave their family, but rather they're part of the family. I think this is perhaps in Japan, and there are other cultures where this is very prevalent. Those cultures show a tremendous amount of respect and reverence for their elderly citizens, and I think it's interesting that in this country we don't necessarily feel that way. We feel that the elderly are incompetent, they're needy, and rather than looking to use the wisdom and the things that can perhaps help a family unit and keep the elderly with the family, we tend to farm them out. But I think it's interesting to see the respect that other cultures hold for senior citizens.
How does this translate into what makes a community for seniors? Anybody else have an idea about that? Yeah.
I remember seeing something. I think it was a senior residence in Denmark or one of the Scandinavian countries, where they gave apartments to young college students that would live in the environment, and they didn't have to take care of anyone, but they would befriend a senior. been in 3 of them already.
My name is Ken. I'm from Albany Guardian Society. It was well said about the village movement. We've been working in the village movement for about 5 years now. We started this group called the Capital Region Villages Collaborative, and we have meetings every other month, and our next one is this Thursday. It's really a great group. People are coming together, and neighbors helping neighbors concept. So if anybody's interested, just look at our website or see me later. But it's just really, it's nice to see where people are coming together, grassroots, small neighborhoods, and really just helping people out like, we used to do a long time ago before we had our iPhones and technology. Technology is a part of the village movement. It does help people connect to it, but it really is, it's going back to that old style where people are just helping each other out in very, kind of minor sort of way that really keeps people independent for a long period of time.
So can you repeat where you're from?
From Albany Guardian Society. We're a not-for-profit foundation, and we put on about 100 programs a year, and one of the things that we do is the village movement.
Yeah, you've got a wonderful schedule of events coming up. Yeah. So anyway, just moving ahead, I did want to mention that what we have here today is a diverse group of seniors. Not as diverse as it could be. I don't see any 50-year-olds here, but maybe I'm wrong. But because seniors includes a group of people from just over the hill 50s to centenarians and above. And there's a lot of room there for difference. Even people in their 50s are very different from one another, and why shouldn't they be? We're all unique and different. Yet somehow, people from the outside tend to lump us together. They stereotype us. Seniors are asexual, physically weak, mentally impaired. Now, we know none of that is true. So it's unfair to stereotype, and we know that stereotyping leads to discrimination. And stereotyping and discrimination are really a very malignant form of ageism. An ageist society tends to value its young people and its old people very, very differently. I don't have to tell you how we idealize youth, how we put them on a pedestal, how we try to emulate them often. Older people, we hear ourselves referred to as old geezers, or cutie, or sweetie, or some other adorable nicknames. These are, you check your vocabulary to see when you hear this kind of stuff, and maybe sometimes we ourselves are guilty of using terms that we should beware of. The other thing, advertiser, Hallmark cards. I don't have to say much more about that, but we know that Hallmark is profiting off of the offenses that we sustain to our dignity. Things about drooping boobs and loss of hearing and everything else, it's not funny. And I don't think we should patronize it. Just a thought. So there is pushback, and we should push back against ageism, just the way we do with the other isms that you are familiar with: anti-Semitism, racism, sexism. It's not okay in today's climate to say boys will be boys. Yes, it's not acceptable to have drug and date rape on college campuses, in the military, harassment and assault in the workplace, or domestic violence in the home. These are not acceptable. We have fought back on these issues. Now we need to fight back on ageism. We need to fight back the way we fought back against the Vietnam War. Remember those days? Yeah. We fought back. And I think we all remember how the personal became political. So we have to mobilize against ageism. And where do we begin? We can begin by acknowledging racism, ageism, and standing up to it. So there are two types of ageism: internalized and institutionalized. And I'm going to say, yes, we are complicit in ageism. We do it ourselves. If we've ever lied about our age, if we've ever been turned off about going to a senior club or a senior trip, if we've ever muttered about the little old lady who's holding up the checkout line, or the little old man who's driving below the speed limit, and even if we've misplaced our keys and we call it our senior moment. Because truthfully, when we misplaced those keys as a teenager, was that a junior moment? So watch your vocabulary. The external or institutionalized ageism is something we've been talking about today, but I just want to quickly mention a personal story about my dad. My dad was 77 years old, 7 years older than I am now, when he was suffering from congestive heart failure. He was in a rehabilitation unit at a nursing home, and without consulting him or my sister, the aides took all of his clothing, his underwear, his pants, his shirts, his sweaters, and they took black magic marker and they wrote in the fabric his name such that the magic marker bled into the fabric. Well, my dad, I can't tell you how distressed he was. As sick as he was distressed. He was a man who prided himself on his education, on being mentally alert, on his clothing, the way he dressed, his grooming. And now he felt he was being infantilized, like a young child going to camp for the first time. Or worse yet, that he was being objectified. In other words, here was some statistic, and many people have come through the nursing home rehabilitation center before, and maybe this guy won't need this clothes much longer anyway. That's how it felt. Ageism at its worst. So, I'm about ending all of these indignities. I'm about saying no to ageism and yes to agency, and making our choices freely. What actually made me think of talking about this theme today was that I was wondering how we can demand death with dignity if we don't also demand life with dignity at all stages of the life cycle. So I would welcome any conversation, further conversation with people. And if you would like to continue this conversation with me, I'd like you to just see me after or write your name down, because I'm curious about topics, more curious about living arrangements, living community. I'm curious to hear what people have to say about long-term care, health insurance for all, for raising the age from 70 and a half for the required minimum distribution from our IRAs, and also what people think about Albany County having been labeled with the honor of age-friendly community, not because we've arrived there, but because of what they expect to do to put meat on the bones. How many of us have been convened to give our opinions about that and what that truly means for Albany County? So there is a whole host of questions that I think needs to be acted upon. I'm not saying that everybody in this room is going to be an actor or an activist, but it's our cohort that's got to be interested, because if we're not for ourselves, who's going to be for us? So with that, I just wanted to find out, just a quick show of hands, are there people who might be interested in continuing a conversation? Great, thank you. And are there other topics that come to mind that you would like to see discussed? Yes?
I would just like to say that if you were talking to an audience of people my age, I may be 7, you would be giving a different story.
That's correct. I have stuff to say about that.
Yeah.
I would like to know what that would be.
You're young as far as I'm concerned. When I was 70, I was hiking the Adirondacks and the White Mountains. You're not talking to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to, you asked who wanted
No, I do want to know
talk.
that, yes.
I wouldn't mind hearing you talk to a group of people who are between 80 and 95. That's correct. Rather than, true. Okay? Because I sound belligerent, and I don't really mean to be.
In fact, that's why I wanted the interaction.
Yeah.
And,
You're a kid as far as I'm concerned. You're only 7 years older than my kids.
Wow. Puts things into perspective. Okay. And that's the kind of conversation I would like to have going forward.
Well, I'd just like to say, I'm an author, Julie Lamel. I know a lot of people here, but I have trademarked the phrase creative crone. And as we speak, it's going through the government system, creative crone. So that's all about positive aging.
Oh,
probably. And I have business.
She was talking about creative crone.
Crone.
Yeah,
And that's creativecrone.net.
That's her.
But it's all about
Positive aging.
I'm just wondering if there was some ageism in that comment, where, it's like people in this age, have the same needs or whatever.
Well, I think I said this is a whole diverse group from 50 to 100 and more. So, yeah, there's a lot of discussion to be had. I think my time's up. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. You raised some interesting points and made some very interesting comments. I think sparked some further conversation and thinking in ways that people may not have been thinking before. So thank you. So a couple of things. Are there any more questions for either of our speakers? Do you have any questions or comments from either of our speakers? Linda?
Well, this is actually a comment for the men in the audience. My husband started a men's book group because he wanted to have social connection with men that didn't talk about sports necessarily or whatever. So I think that's a great idea for trying to build social isolation and companionship between men. It's turned now into a couples group, so about half of the men now we get together, and so that's become another social group, and sometimes the men have their conversations, sometimes the women have theirs, but it's just an idea to kind of overcome that issue that people were raising about how it's more difficult for men as they age.
Amanda?
So I'm probably the youngest person in the room. Oh wait, but maybe the other Amanda. Yep. Younger than me. But I just want to say really quickly, given the work that I do, and for anybody who knows me, I lost my partner, Chrissy. That's how I got in this world. And she was 29 years old. And at that point, I realized what old meant to me was very different than what it probably means to some of you. But I think aging is a privilege, and I think we sort of miss that. Like, I think it's a privilege to be able to continue to grow old and continue to have experiences. So I have a different respect than a lot of maybe other millennials or people my age do for older people. But I just want to thank you all and say congratulations on getting older.
Thank you, that was great. One of the things that I'm taking from this whole conversation is that there should be more conversation about two aspects. One is, where do you envision yourself living in your 70s and your 80s, in your 90s? And the other is, how do you maintain those social connections? Because we've heard it now from both of our speakers, that social connection is so important, whether it's in retirement or particularly post-retirement. If you don't have a workplace for ready-made social interaction. So I think that's something for Jeff and I to take note of in terms of programming for next year, which brings me to programming announcements. This is our last scheduled program for this spring. I want to remind you about the all-important Lobby Day on April 23rd, and we would love to see as many of you there as you can possibly make arrangements to be. You don't have to be an experienced lobbyist to do this. You don't have to have any experience at all. Just join our group and you'll get training, you'll have materials and preparation. You won't need to make a speech to a legislator if you don't feel like you are ready to do that. But it's really important for us to demonstrate that there are a lot of people who care about the passage of medical aid in dying in New York State. They need to hear from us.
Let me just ask a question about that. When we lobbied last year, we were given T-shirts. Should we bring those T-shirts?
Okay, the question is, if you're going to show up on April 23rd for Lobby Day, should you wear your yellow Compassion and Choices T-shirt? And the answer is yes, absolutely.
And if you don't have a T-shirt, we'll have them available for you.
I guess the one thing that I want to say to leave you with before we have a couple other announcements is something that Ellen, you said, that you heard from people who you were interviewing, this phrase, appreciating my advanced wisdom. Isn't that a great phrase? So I think that's something we can all take out of here with today, to appreciate our advanced wisdom. And thank you to our speakers. Thank you very much for the time and effort you put into preparing and to delivering your talk today.